Joining me now on this special broadcast is Walter Andersen. He's a very well-respected American academic and author. He's studied the Rashtriya Swayamsevak Sangh for over 6 decades. He's also a former head of South Asia Studies, School of Advanced Studies at Johns Hopkins University. Mr. Andersen, welcome. How are you, sir? Your take on Prime Minister Narendra Modi describing the RSS as the world's largest NGO, highlighting its 100 years of selfless service to the nation from the ramparts of the Red Fort. In your view, sir, how significant is it for the Prime Minister of India to publicly acknowledge the role of the RSS, given that complex relationship that RSS has had with some of the past governments?
I listened to the speech when he got to the section praising the RSS. I was a little surprised because, as you say, this was the first time in one of these speeches that he has formally mentioned, not only mentioned, but praised the RSS. Now, the immediate question is, why did he decide to break new ground on this? I think there are a couple of reasons. One has to do with the elections that are coming up in West Bengal and Bihar, very important for the BJP. And as you know, in the last elections, national elections, the BJP did not do all that well. It didn't get a majority on its own. It needed allies to rule. Now, one of the reasons for that is many in the RSS sat on their hands during the election, because typically in the past, the RSS Swayamsevaks have worked both with the BJP and has sought to get out the vote on their behalf. They were much less so now in that. And in fact, if you want to see the differences, compare the national elections and then the following elections that came up in Haryana, where the RSS did support the BJP, and there they did quite well. So, I think that, you have national elections has something to do with it. Then there was something internal, because Nadda, the president of the BJP, had made a comment that, the BJP didn't necessarily need the RSS. And many people took that as an insult, which is why I think in the national elections, many of them sat on their hands rather than work very, very diligently. Well, the Prime Minister needs these elections coming up, and he needs all the support he can get. And of course, the RSS is a major factor in that.
So you've studied the RSS for over 50 years, for 60 years. Your reading of the Sangh, your reading of the Sangh, the Prime Minister described them as selfless workers. The Prime Minister described them as playing a very critical role from Vyakti ka nirman, or, the development of an individual, to Rashtra ka nirman, to the development of the nation.
Yes, he did that. One has to remember that the Prime Minister is a former full-time worker of the RSS. He's a former pracharak. So he knows it from the inside. And then, having read about his early youth, he looked at the RSS almost as a surrogate family. So he still has in his heart, I think, a considerable sensitive feeling for the RSS and what it has done. And I think that because the election, and because they did badly, not badly, they still were able to form a government, but didn't do nearly as well as expected. That with these important state elections coming up, they need the BJP. And what better platform than the one he had today? I mean, you have the country listening, and you can be sure you've got the RSS pracharaks and the various RSS, senior figures, and also in the various affiliated organizations, who are listening to what he has to say, and I'm sure they have taken a favorable view. In fact, I know that's the case because after that happened, I made some contacts, and at least my contacts were pleased as punch. That he said
pleased as punch with the Prime Minister's reference, but. Yes. Explain the Sangh as you have studied it, as you have written about it. Can they swing elections? Can they ensure voters come to the election? Because ultimately, that is what is required. Beyond the lofty speeches, is to get that last voter to the booth. So, how does the RSS work in your view? Because they say we're a cultural organization.
Well, it's true. I mean, that has always been their argument ever since the ban, is that we are in fact a cultural organization. But in fact, they provide assistance to the BJP, as they do to the other some 100 affiliated organizations which they have, which means India's largest student group, its largest labor union, whose leadership is almost like the BJP, is almost all drawn from RSS backgrounds. So, you're not going to find much internal difference within the RSS. Now, the very fact the Prime Minister, I'm sure, realized that this was going to arouse a certain amount of controversy, which, as you noted, has aroused a certain amount of controversy. He was willing to take that chance, thinking that was not as significant. Now, to get your initial question, can the RSS throw elections? They can ensure that the BJP doesn't do as well, which is what happened in the last national elections. And so, in a sense, what he said indicates that he is concerned the Prime Minister is concerned by where things are going, for the country. And now we're not going to talk about the tariff issue. I have a couple of other, interviews on the tariff issue that India has.
But I want to now come to the point, since you raised, you spoke of the controversy, you spoke of the opposition, the Congress termed the Prime Minister's comments most troubling, saying in their view it was a breach of the spirit of the constitution of a secular republic, and in their view a desperate attempt to appease the Sangh. Your thoughts on the criticism?
Well, I mean, this is not new. The criticism has been old, and the louder the criticism indicates that the more they're concerned about the influence of the RSS. In fact, in a sense, it's their, saying that the RSS, is a very important organization that has an important influence in the country's affairs. It does so. As to the issue of whether or not, it's a blow to secularism, the issue, if you look at the RSS, it has within it all brands of Hinduism, and it also has Christians and Muslims within it. And that has been true since the time of Dale Ross, one of the third Sarsang Chalak of the RSS. So, it's from their perspective, it's not unusual. For those who know India, it's not all that unusual. And we'll see what happens in the elections. I'm sure now, in fact, the Prime Minister visited Nagpur for the first time when he was Prime Minister, was it last April? And he also said some very, very congratulatory things. And I think it's tempting to sort of, heal whatever wounds were created by the statement that Mr. Nadda made. And also the sense that somehow if they didn't respect the RSS and didn't think it was needed, okay, fine, we'll see what happens. And we
so
saw
before I let you go, I also want to ask you, by calling the RSS the biggest non-government organization that's engaged in selfless service and devotion to the nation and the individual, in your view, is the Prime Minister, because, previous generations may have their view, some generations may have their view, is the Prime Minister, opening an arena or opening a window so that the next generation, the younger lot, can know more about the RSS? And in your view, will this help reshape public perception and opinion?
It might. I'm not sure how much, because I'm not sure that was the objective, was to create a better opinion of the RSS. So it might have that. I think the opinion was actually directed to members of the BJP and the RSS. In fact, it was say, work with us, as you have done in the past, and don't sit on your hands as you did, because it can hurt us, and hurting us could hurt you as well. So I think that was the objective.
Fair enough. Walter Andersen, for joining me here on India Today. Many thanks.